All right. This week you have assignment 2, which you can see on the screen here. Assignment 2 basically requires you to take the company you started in assignment 1 and to record 15 additional transactions. Now, in order to be successful, when you get my grading notes from assignment 1, you're going to need to make any corrections that need to be made before you turn in assignment 2. That being said, it doesn't mean you can't start assignment 2. You certainly can go ahead and start it. My recommendations to you is that you read through all 15 transactions, make sure you understand what's going to happen, and then I would highly recommend that you start with transaction number 1, work your way through it before you go on to 2, etc. In other words, don't jump around as if you're trying to do like all the journal entries first and then all the customer transactions and so forth. If you do that, you're invariably going to leave something off. So I would not do that. I would go ahead and start with the first transaction, work your way through, and go from there. Now, as you look at the assignment, there are several things here that are going to be able to help you. Number 1, almost every transaction will tell you what type of transaction it is. So for instance, number 1, it tells you do a journal entry. Okay, so you know this is a journal entry transaction. Number 2, as you read through it, it tells you this is a vendor transaction. Okay, so the way you handle a vendor transaction is different than a journal entry. If you go on down to number 4, it says a payment was received from a customer. All right, well, obviously this must be a customer transaction, and that's done differently than a vendor transaction and a journal entry. So you have a mixture in here. You have 4 customer transactions, you have a bunch of journal entries, and then you have a slew of vendor transactions. For the vendor transactions, there's going to be a vendor name associated with each one. You see this one says Office Max. For customer transactions, you'll have a unique name for each customer, okay, which you see here. And as you go through, when you get to the bottom, under the 15th transaction, once you do that, the instructions are going to tell you to run certain reports. Now, most of you, if not all of you, have the online version of QuickBooks. And I didn't get a chance to delete these videos yet, but I'm going to. They pertain to the old version of QuickBooks, and they're not going to help you. So what I want to do today is to show you how to do a journal entry, which you should already know. I want to show you how to do a vendor transaction and how to do a customer transaction. And that should prepare you for doing assignment 2. Again, for assignment 2, I would highly recommend you go ahead and get started on it, even though you don't have the results of assignment 1 yet. There is a 4-hour go-to training scheduled for Friday, which basically will allow you to log into it. And as you're working on assignment 2, if you have questions, then I can try to answer them and so forth. If you get the assignment done before Friday and you want me to take a look at it, feel free to upload it to the assignment and send me a message to tell me that it's there and you want me to look at it. And I'll be more than happy to do so, and I'll be more than happy to tell you anything I see that maybe needs to be changed. I will do that right up until 7 p.m. on Friday night. After that, I no longer will look at them until I put a grade on them. All right, so that's just for you. Down below these videos that I'm going to take down, you're going to find there's also a Word document down here. And when you go into the Word document, it's going to be a breakdown transaction by transaction for giving you some additional hints on how to do the transaction. So for number 1, it says bank loan, debit, cash, credit, loan payable. The transaction itself is a journal entry, so that makes it pretty easy. Number 2, office supplies. It tells you that you're going to debit supplies inventory and credit cash by setting up a vendor, entering the bill, and paying the bill, okay, and so forth. So all 15 of them are right here. And between this Word document and the hints in the transactions themselves, this should be a really easy assignment for you, which is good because if you're in the campus class, it's worth 20% of your grade. On the online class, because you have discussion boards, I think it's only worth 15. Okay, that being said, I was able to find it's a little sample company that QuickBooks has out there to help teachers demonstrate stuff, and I've been playing around with it, and I think it works pretty good. For starters, by now you will have figured out on the online version that you got these little icons up at the top. Some of them, like for instance the gear, this is going to give you some tools, like for instance budgeting is something you're going to use in week 3. Your chart of accounts is in here, which is something you use from assignment 1. Okay, you have also your account and your settings, things along that line, your user profile, and so forth. If you go to the plus button, you're going to have different stuff. And for assignment 2, this is where you're going to be doing most of your transactions. For instance, you have a journal entry. And when you click on the journal entry, it's going to default to today's date. I haven't done any entries, so it's giving me journal entry number 1. And when you do a journal entry, you have to have at least 2 accounts being impacted. One is going to be a debit, one is going to be a credit. So let's go back to the first assignment. The first assignment said that your company received $20,000 cash in exchange for issuing common stock. All right, so if I click on the first cell, okay, doesn't look like I have the account called cash. If you set it up in assignment 1, you will have it. So I want to add it, and the account type is a bank, and that's absolutely correct. The name of the account is cash. I'm going to mark it as a checking account, and I'm going to save it. All right, so that account's now been set up. So the transaction was $20,000. I'm going to say issue stock to president of company. The description is entirely optional. I just like to put something in so it reminds me, you know, what's going on there. The other part of the transaction was to common stock, and as you can see, that one's not set up, so I want to add that. And the account type for this should be equity, and detail type, we'll call it common stock, and I'm going to say save and close. All right, so that account's now been set up. And you can see that the system automatically put $20,000 in the credit column. So my debits and credits equal, and it also copied the description down to this line as well. And I'm going to say save. Okay, so that journal entry has been saved. You want to make a point on assignment 2 that you do not do one big journal entry. You got about 7 journal entries to do, and you want to make them each a separate journal entry. Otherwise, if any part of the entry is wrong, then all of your journal entries will be wrong. So just do one journal entry at a time. Do not make it a big thing. All right, so I've done my journal entry. I'm going to exit out of here. And the next thing I want to do is, again, go to the plus button, except this time I want to do a vendor transaction. And you can see under the vendor menu, I have a lot of different options here. I can key in a bill, right? I can pay the bill. I have credits down here. I can print checks and so forth. So under the old system, what you would do is to create a vendor, and then you would turn around and enter a bill, and then you would pay a bill. Under the online version, it kind of consolidates some of this stuff together. So for a vendor transaction, what you need to do is to go into bill, and up here, if your vendor is already set up, you can choose which vendor you have. Okay, I am going to make a new vendor, and this is what you would do for each of the vendor transactions. You want to type in whatever the name is. I'm going to type in Office Max, and I want to add it, and I have the name there, and I don't think I want to add any details, so I'll say save, and now that vendor is in the system. Now, if I had terms, I could choose them, but I don't. Today's date defaults to it, and it's assuming that it's due today as well. So the only thing I have to do is to put down here which account is being impacted by the transaction. And Office Max is where we're buying the supplies from. And I'm going to click on the first row, and you can see if I click on the down arrow, it's going to give me all the accounts that are out there. And if I don't do that, I can just start typing it in. Supplies, inventory. Okay, it doesn't exist. It wants me to set it up. So there's the name, supplies inventory. It's actually an asset, and it's actually an other current asset. And maybe I'll change this to other current asset and say save. Okay, so that account's now been set up. I could put a description in here if I so desired, but it's not required. I do have to put an amount in here. I call it $350. Okay. I don't need billable, I don't need tax, and I don't need to enter a customer name. If I had multiple accounts being impacted with this transaction, I could put in the second account and so forth. But I only have one account that's being impacted. And when I get done, I say save. Okay, this is a advertisement, and I don't want to learn more, so I'm going to say no thanks. I can exit out of here. Now, I also want to pay the bill. And in assignment 2, you pay all the bills except for 2. The 2 that are not going to get paid is the insurance bill and the utility bill. So now I want to pay bills. So I'll go to the plus again. This time I'm going to say pay bills. Okay. I want to pay it from my cash account. And I want to find the bill, which I need to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's Office Max right here. I want to put a check mark next to that. You can see it says $350. And I'm going to say save and print. And the bill's been marked as paid. Okay, so exit out of here and go to the next thing, which is maybe I want to see, maybe, I don't know, let's go in here again. Maybe I want to see if I have any more bills that need to be paid. Okay, you can see I do have some other stuff out here. These were already pre-populated. I'm not interested in paying them, but if I was, I simply would put a check mark next to the ones I want to pay and then save and print. Obviously, nothing's going to print because this is a sample company, and I don't believe in your version anything will try to print either. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, so exit out of there. And again, for vendors, you go into bill, you set up the vendor, you enter the information. If you're going to pay it, you say pay bills, and then you're good to go. Customers works very, very similar. In customers, you have, instead of a bill, you have an invoice. Instead of paying a bill, you have a receive a payment. You can make an estimate. You can give your customer a credit, sales receipt if you want, and so forth. So what we're going to do is set up an invoice, and we're going to receive a payment. So I'll go into invoice, and I want to I'm going to create a customer here. Customer 2, and I want to add it. I don't need any detailed information, so I'll just say save. Okay. Now, what I do have to put in here is what I'm selling this customer. So if I do the click down, I can see I have a bunch of stuff out here. Okay. But the one thing I don't have, well, actually I did. I set it up, and I'm going to set it up again. I want to add a new one. And this is going to be a service, and we're going to call it Event Revenue 1. Okay, there's no SKU. There's nothing that really fits in there. It is asking me which income account. So I want to make sure, oops. I'm going to set up Event Revenue 1. Okay. It's not liking that. So let's see what else I have here. Okay, so I guess that has to be services. So we'll use services, and we're going to save and close. Okay, so I have that out there, and if I want to, I could put in a description, like maybe fall fair, entirely optional, but I can do that. I can have a quantity and a rate, and it will calculate the amounts, or I can simply put an amount in here. We'll put $1,000, and I want to uncheck the box that says tax because there is no tax. And you can see my total due is $1,000. On the other side over here, I could always put, like they have here an example, thank you for your business and have a great day. You can have a whole library of these things if you so desired. And that's going to show up on the invoice. All right, so I have the information in here. We've created an invoice for $1,000. The terms are net 30, which means that our customer has to pay us by June the 6th. And I'm going to say save. All right, so that's now been out there. Let's pretend for a moment, again, we'll exit out of here. Let's pretend that the customer is actually paying us. So again, go into the plus. This time we're going to say under customers, receive payment. And I got to choose my customer. And we'll say customer 2. And when I click on that, you can see it pre-populates down here that I have an invoice. And only thing I really have to do is I can tell it payment method. Let's say it's cash. It's referencing checking, but maybe I want to change that to the account called cash. And the only thing I have to do is click on the box next to the invoice. And when I do, then I can say save, and I'll receive that payment. Okay, so I received that payment. All right, so again, for customers, you click on the plus button. It's very simple. Go into invoice, type in the name of your customer. It will ask you if you want to add that. You click on that and it adds it. You go in on the invoice and you identify event revenue as the account that you are interested in. Type in the dollar amount, save it, and then go into receive payment and receive the payment for that customer. Okay, so when you get done, you're going to have some reports you're going to want to run. And if I go into reports, you have a bunch of different options here. So for instance, I could run the profit and loss comparison. I could run the profit and loss by month, profit and loss period. I can run the balance sheet as the summary. Okay. I also have management reports, which I can run if I so desire. Going back to all reports, I can run collection reports, sales reports, who I owe money to, a listing of expenses and vendors, sales tax, employees. Then down here on the bottom, I had this thing for my accountant. And you have some things that you'll have to run for assignment 2. One is the balance sheet, one is the profit and loss, one is the journal, and one is the ledger. So let's just run the balance sheet for a moment. All right, so here's my balance sheet. You'll notice it's as of today. There's a lot more transactions in here because this is a sample company and it's already pre-populated with stuff. So as you can go through, you can see there's a lot of accounts and so forth. And you want to make sure that it's been run using the accrual method. And you also want to export it. So export is this little icon right here. When you click on it, you want to export it to Excel. And you can see I now have my report in Excel. Okay, and that's the only way you're going to be able to submit it to me. You can't submit the actual report. One thing you can do on the report, though, is wherever you see a number, okay, if I click on that number, double click on it, I'm going to see the listing of transactions that make up that number. So that ends up being a very handy tool to have. So again, go in here. Here's that supplies inventory. Click on it. Okay, I see supplies inventory. It says it's a bill. Maybe I want to go look at it. So I'll click on the 350 again. And it takes me back to the original document. You can see it's marked as paid. Okay, same thing with your customer transactions. So if I were to go into the sales, which means I need to go to my profit and loss report, you're going to see that I should have somewhere in here services. Okay, click on it, and oh boy, I picked one that has a lot of stuff in it. Okay, well, in any event, if it was something I wanted to look at, I could double click on the, just expand this a little bit. Okay, I could double click on the item and it will give me a breakdown as to what's actually on here. It also clearly marks it as paid. Okay, so let me open it up for questions. I think that it's pretty intuitive what you need to do, but I'll leave it open for you. See what you think. All right, does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, well, I'm here this afternoon and I will be, available from 10:30 tomorrow morning up until 8 o'clock tomorrow night. I'll be working on grading assignment 1. And when you get that back, you may have some changes you need to make. And most notably, the changes you might have to make are to change the account type. So while you're here, let me go ahead and take you through that. Let's exit out of here. And I'm going to go back in to the gear. And I'm going to come over here to chart of accounts. And I want to see my chart of accounts. Now, let's pretend for a moment that one of these is wrong and we want to change it. So here's one I want to change. So if I highlight it and come over here and click the down arrow, I can hit edit. And if the account type is wrong on assignment 1, I literally will tell you what the correct account type is. So the only thing you have to do is click on the down arrow and select the account type I tell you and say save and close. And it's been updated for you. If you're missing some accounts, then you're going to have to add them. And you can do that by saying new. Okay, click the down arrow. We're not going to import. We can say new. You type in the name of the account. You pick the account type that it is. And you may have to hit the detail type here, although that doesn't really appear anywhere. And then say save and close. Okay, that's all I got for you. So unless you have questions, thanks for hanging around and let me know how I can help you.
Hello? Mr. Ferrari?
Yes, sir.
I've got one question about the not about the assignment, about the lesson. You gave an example in the video about prepaid insurance, and I think it was deferred, something about deferred accounting. And the insurance company gave the, or I'm sorry, it was rent, and the landlord gave a 5% discount. And then you divided the, I think that you divided the total amount